You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week, as always, is Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. And the road-weary Jeff Ranke is gone once again, but in his place, Andy Zoll. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. How we doing?
Doing great. Little squirrely. We'll get to that in a bit. Just a reminder that Andy Zoll is the lead editor of Food Manufacturing and also on Industrial Distribution with Anna. So, every week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Now, before we get to that, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive 5-star review, because apparently everything under 5 stars doesn't have any value on the internet anymore. You can also email the podcast. You can reach any of us at Andy, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday, depending on when our flight gets in or doesn't get in. So subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can join us in the live chat. Help us mix it up. Anna, I wanted to kick off this episode with a Jeff fact.
Okay, I'm listening.
Jeff loved the Jeff facts.
Yep.
So he sent one for us to start this episode.
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
Jeff's fact is that Jeff Facts should be a spin-off and potential board game, and he just thinks that the merchandising opportunities are endless on this one.
Jeff Facts merchandise? What would they be?
I feel like that's an opinion
Yeah.
rather than a fact.
Jeff Opinions, the board game.
Could be a correct opinion, but an opinion nonetheless.
Well, he already has a working prototype. And there are also, we're trying to figure out what the thing that leads to the thing card would be. Like, is that
sure.
like pass and go, getting $200? It's in the works right now.
Yeah,
he's on the road, so he's got like nothing but time for inner dialogue while he's in a hotel room.
He is going to have a prototype when he comes back. And like this little bridge with trolls and stuff, the thing that leads to the thing bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't wait to see it, Jeff.
His version of the like jump to conclusions map.
Yes.
All right. Andy, again, how was your week?
A little busy, I won't lie to you, but we made it. We're almost there.
Almost there.
We are so close.
I apologize for my contributions to that busy week. All right. Well, before we start with our first story, we have a word from our sponsor. Hi, I'm David Manti with Industrial Equipment News. Selecting the right hoses to keep your workers safe and facilities operational is crucial, but not all hoses are created equal. So, to help us work it out, Doug Nordstrom, hose product manager at Swagelok, is going to help us figure it out. Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. Central. Please join us live. So, Doug, give us a little bit of what people could expect to learn from this webinar in May.
Yeah, so we always want to make sure we educate our hose users to select the right hose for a job because an improperly selected hose can be very dangerous for operators, people around the hose. It can lead to excessive downtime and can be a source of excessive cost for a particular operation.
Well, we certainly don't want that. So please register now to join us live Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. Central. We'll see you there. Hey, it's my voice again, in a slightly higher definition this time, but just a reminder that this week's episode is brought to you by Swagelok. Hose failures are unfortunately a very common source of equipment downtime and can create significant safety risks. So, on Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m., join us for Mastering Hose Selection in Your Facility live. It's a new live video podcast. Register now, join us for the live Q&A, or register now and just watch it on demand like 90% of people do. Either way, we're happy to have you. Our first story this week. Coca-Cola plans $650 million New York dairy plant. Last week, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced that the Coca-Cola Company picked New York State as the site for a new Fairlife production facility. Founded in 2012, Fairlife's products are made using an ultra-filtered milk process that removes the lactose and most of the sugar, but leaves behind more of the protein and calcium. This 745,000 square foot facility should create 250 new jobs in the town of Webster, which is just outside of Rochester. If everything gets approved, the company will break ground sometime this fall, and production should begin in late 2025. The total project investment, as I stated, is an estimated $650 million. Anna, a lot of big things happening in upstate New York these days.
Yeah, and being from Wisconsin, you don't always think of New York when you think of the dairy industry.
Yeah, not at all.
But,
not even on the radar, actually.
Well, same, but we're living in some sort of dairy echo chamber because New York is actually a major player in this industry. They have more than 3,500 dairy farms. New York State is the 5th largest producer of milk and actually the largest producer of both cottage cheese and yogurt.
Oh.
The more you know.
Mm-hmm.
So this community in New York, the dairy community, they have large farms, small ones, family run. There's processing, everything that's being supported by this framework within the state's Department of Agriculture. They have a lot of programs in place to help farmers and to help the dairy industry along in New York. So I think for the community that's been pretty accepting so far of this proposal, they're kind of getting the best of both worlds here. You have the job gains. This Fairlife plant is also going to be sourcing milk from local farms, which is great. And then I think not only that, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think that when you have an operation that's owned by a corporation that's as big as Coca-Cola, you at least have a little reassurance that you're not dealing with as much risk.
Right.
You know that they have some funding behind them. They're a longstanding operator, right?
Yeah.
They have processes in place. They have ESG goals, right? So they really have a lot to lose, I think, if they come in with like a smelly, dirty, noisy operation, right?
Yeah.
So they won't probably. And then, their operations also can be tied back to an actual product. I think, everyone knows the Coke name. Everyone knows the Fairlife name. It's not like other dairies or food operations where they work primarily in private labels, so there's no villain if there's a problem, right? In this case, at least you know that you would have a subject for your ire if things went awry. So I think that actually is sort of an insurance policy. And so, as I mentioned, there was very little pushback on this project compared to what you sometimes see with food plants.
Right.
And also relevant, I think, is New York's history and then their infrastructure relative to dairy. So it seems like a good fit culturally for this area. Not just a scenario where a company is trying to like shoehorn in a plant where they think they're going to get the most tax breaks. I think this is actually a good fit for this area.
Right. And worth just over $270 billion. That is the best sum backing that I've ever.
They have a little cash in their coffers.
Little bit of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Andy, it was cottage cheese and yogurt. It's good to see that a good dairy product is coming to New York.
You're not a fan of cottage cheese or yogurt?
No, it's a texture thing.
For both?
I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to come around on both, actually, but I got there.
I can cook.
I'm an
with
adult
yogurt
now.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it. That's not a shock to anybody.
No, this is huge news for certainly the local dairy industry, and I think maybe the broader dairy industry overall. As you mentioned, we're in Wisconsin. It says America's Dairyland right on the license plate, and I think this may have flown a little bit under the radar, just because it's kind of been a consistent issue that doesn't pop up as much as some other issues that we cover on the food side. But dairy farmers, particularly small ones, they deal with a lot of the problems that other farmers face with regard to labor issues, competition from overseas, that sort of thing. But really their main problem is that young people overall, and especially young people, are just buying and drinking less milk. Mm-hmm. So there's more production and less consumption, and that's going to do a number on your prices. So if Fairlife can, as we talked about a little bit, they have this process that strips out some of the more concerning stuff, the sugar, the lactose.
Yeah.
If that can address some of the issues that younger people might have with dairy, with milk in particular, if that offers a path forward for this industry, that's promising for a lot of areas, because there's a lot of, particularly here, but also New York, California, wherever, there's a lot of very vulnerable rural areas that depend on this industry. So this is good news, I think, all around.
Have either of you guys tried the Fairlife product?
I haven't, but I have been told by others who thought that they couldn't tolerate milk anymore that they can drink this. So it's probably worth trying. I don't drink milk either.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll try the Fairlife.
No, I'll try Fairlife because, milk, my time with milk has seemed to have passed, unfortunately. And I was doing oat milk, but all oat milk is kind of like a reminder of how it's not milk.
Overnight oat milk or just regular day off?
Overnight oat milk is a treasure. That's the only way I can only have milk like in things now. I used to have like a pint of milk with every meal, and now it's like I look at milk in my body, like my esophagus just starts flexing, like don't think about it.
I think I've had it, but maybe just because there weren't a lot of other options at the gas station or something like that. I think I was in a pinch when I bought it. Not that I am morally opposed to it or anything. It just, I'm, you're
not
used
enough
to
lactose.
Yeah,
Andy.
you're used to going and getting the big jug of gallon of milk, so you get that. So I think it was good. I don't remember one way or the other. It's probably fine.
I mean, honestly, it is definitely my fault as a consumer, but the way it was sort of stocked, I always thought it was a milk alternative, not actually just a different
It is.
process.
It's off to the side of
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is just a drop in the Coca-Cola buckets, but Fairlife last year surpassed $1 billion in annual retail sales. About 2 years ago, prior to the acquisition, the company did about $500 million. So it is growing quickly and likely anticipating just crazy growth to continue. According to New York's governor, the competition was tough for what will be, like you said, the largest dairy processing plant in the Northeast. This comes right after a couple of other like really large wins for the state. And I do hate that term wins, so I apologize for using that. Let's say big deals. You know what? That might be worse also.
Big deals.
feats.
Yeah.
Feats.
Some incredible feats for New York. Micron, if you remember, is investing $100 billion to build the largest semiconductor fabrication facility in the history of the United States, north of Syracuse. And in late 2020, Li-Cycle opened a recycling plant in Rochester that's going to process some 5,000 metric tons of old batteries to make a battery material known as black mass from spent lithium-ion batteries. So, it's been a good couple of years for the state. New York's Empire State Development Department is pitching in up to $21 million through a performance-based jobs tax credit program. And I know that sometimes people kind of flinch when it comes to tax incentives, but I think when it's tied to jobs or real numbers that are quantifiable, that there's a little bit more of a sigh of relief, I guess, or people trust it a little bit more rather than just handing out free TIF money. The county is also applying for a $20 million capital grant so that they can work to provide adequate power and other related infrastructure costs to service the site. This is one thing that only came on my radar very recently about how infrastructure in the Northeast in particular is old and just can't, support some of these state-of-the-art facilities. So this shouldn't go unnoticed that there are some deep infrastructure concerns in the state, and it's good to see that they're willing to put up the money to kind of support these new facilities. All right, well, our next most popular story this week: paper box maker to pay $13,000 to mistakenly fired worker. A folding paper box manufacturer and its owner were just incorrigatable. Tried it. For firing an employee they believed filed a safety complaint. The Department of Labor says the story started in October 2017 in Pennsylvania when an employee at Midvale Paper Box Company filed a safety complaint with OSHA. The employee contended that Midvale didn't provide PPE and made employees unjam machines without any lockout tagout. OSHA inspected the facility and proposed more than $200,000 in fines for 9 safety violations. The worker, who was fired, allegedly made 3 requests. He or she wanted safety gloves and was actually injured after the first request. After OSHA got involved, Midvale fired the glove seeker, but it turns out that this wasn't the worker who filed the complaint. Either way, the OSHA Act of 1970 forbids employees from firing anyone or employers from firing any employee who files a complaint. Now, Newly agitated, the fired worker filed a whistleblower claim, which prompted a new Department of Labor investigation, and a court recently ordered Midvale and its owner, David Frank, to pay $13,000 to the former worker. The company, in a weird addition, also has to write a neutral job reference for the individual. Now, Anna, I ask you this. For a larger company like this, is it more difficult to cut the $13,000 check or write that job reference?
What is a neutral job reference anyway?
It is
This person worked here.
This person worked here, did their job, came on time. Well, maybe not even that. Just like
I don't know.
I don't know I'm sure I've read plenty of them over the years, but I can just imagine having to sit down and write this job reference and just begrudgingly like,
Yeah.
this person was present at this facility on days
I
required.
feel like you maybe don't ask for a reference from that employer if
Yeah.
you were fired for not doing something.
Yeah, I don't see this employee
I guess they just want to
offering
stipulate.
this up.
Yeah, they just want to stipulate that you can't call this person a narc. Like,
Yeah, it's a nice piece to have framed in the den.
sure.
You know? Anna, what did you think about what happened at Midvale Paper?
Well, I don't really feel that bad for them having to sit down and write this thing because I think that maybe we can agree, that it's kind of hard to cast Midvale in any kind of a good light here. Because it would be bad enough for them to fire a worker who complained about safety issues at the plant. And we know those safety issues were not just perspective because OSHA came in and found 9 violations. But even worse, that they made an assumption about who this person was and fired them without really even having any evidence is what it sounds like. And if this isn't damning evidence of a culture problem, I don't know what is. Like, this is exactly why whistleblower laws exist, right? Because companies like this who target people with backlash for creating problems for them, even though like it's the manufacturer's responsibility to create a safe working environment, and it is the worker's right to have one, to work in one, right? So,
Which is sometimes forgotten.
Right, I know. And like, obviously the mistake in this case is what made this story interesting, but it's not really relevant, right? It doesn't matter who they fired.
Yeah.
And when you consider that it's illegal for them to fire anybody, and it's pretty obviously illegal. Like, I think that any rational person would have the common sense to think it's probably not legal for me to retaliate against someone who created a hard time for me. So like, to me, that's like evidence of a toxic working environment, but also of hubris, because I just, for thinking like you can get away with it,
I mean, you're definitely gambling that the worker is just going to begrudgingly go away and start anew somewhere else.
I agree. And it's so much audacity, I think, to like not just failure workers when it comes to PPE, but also lockout tagout. And we know lockout tagout failures are responsible for taking lives and limbs. It is not a joke. It is not small potatoes in terms of safety. And then somebody at the top is not only negligent, but they're also, I think, feeling untouchable. That's the perception that I have of this case, is that they were just like, you know what? Forget it. We're going to do this and this and this, because they're mad. But like, that's a problem. If like the payback comes beyond this like $13,000, I hope. I hope that they face some blowback from maybe their business partners or their customers. But again, like we talked about with the Coke story, it's hard to track that supply chain. This is a box manufacturer. It's not like I can say I'm not going to buy boxes from them. I have no idea where my boxes come from.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in the future, if they have any business impact for this in the end. But really scary to think that somebody can operate this way, and at least they got caught.
I think that's one of the things that's lost in this, Andy, is that I think people focus on the fact that the worker was just asking for gloves and then had a hand injury and didn't get gloves. And so it seems like this person is making a mountain out of a molehill over gloves. But because you kind of overlook the lockout tagout issue, which we have covered hundreds of times in our time with IAN and manufacturing.net, and it continues to be an issue.
I mean, this isn't even their first. This should not surprise anyone, but this is not their first OSHA issue. They were hit in 2015 for lockout, tagout stuff, machine guarding, another forklift operator issue. But you mentioned hubris, and it's just like the hubris of getting OSHA people come by to inspect and assuming it's the glove person, like they're the only person disgruntled here. That could only be them. It's just insane. So, and when they first filed this suit over this particular termination, they were still contesting the original citations from the 17 inspection. So I think our friend might just be in denial about what's happening at his company, or he's terrible.
Well, so it made me look at other reviews. Glassdoor has reviews from employees, and understanding that these reviews always got to be taken with like a big grain of disgruntled salt. But I mean, this one kind of was eye-popping. The only one was from a former forklift operator in 2019, I believe. The headline of the review was simply titled "Bad Company." Under pros, they wrote, "Nothing good about this company." Under cons, they wrote, "Everything is horrible. Stay away." Now, if you're even doing minimal due diligence when you're looking at a potential employer and you Google this company, this is just another sort of strike against you in a increasingly competitive, or I guess leveling in terms of competition for talent. But this isn't going to help you at all.
No.
And I mean,
it's a good pro though.
That doesn't seem out of the realm for Glassdoor. Like, that's kind of your standard Glassdoor review.
Glassdoor.
No one's showing up on Glassdoor to write an earnest positive review unless they're being encouraged to do so. Right?
I was going to say, like, all Glassdoor really is a bunch of extremely disgruntled individuals and the head of HR trying to like slip in a couple of those fake ones. I've never been happier. We have free pies once a quarter, and I feel appreciated as a worker.
I'm valued here.
I also wanted to point out that, so in addition to having to pay the former employee $13,000, Midvale Paper Box Company also has to do the following. And this was the number one thing in the bulleted list of things that they have to do. Number one, not violate the OSHA Act's whistleblower provisions in the future.
Oh,
Got to cover your bases.
Good thing the Department of Labor came out and just said, well, don't do it again. I swear, next time we're really coming after you.
Yep.
Oh, so I don't know. I just I hope that when we run stories like this, they are teachable moments for companies that maybe have a toxic culture or a little bit too much hubris, and like from people from the inside that are looking to kind of change the culture. But I mean, one thing I blew past my Jeff fact in the first story, and I would say like the Jeff fact for this one is, this is typically a toxic culture that goes all the way to the top. So, sorry about missing that Jeff fact on the first story. That was like the only one I had, Jeff. So, spoiler alert, that was it. All right. Well, our next most popular story. Protesters throw cake at VW chair during shareholders meeting. VW recently held its annual shareholders meeting in Berlin. But what was supposed to be an otherwise civil event was disrupted by protesters. VW chair Wolfgang Porsche was speaking at the event when a protester hurled a cake at him. The occasion also marked Porsche's 80th birthday. Happy birthday, Wolf. The activists wanted VW to improve its carbon emissions record, but clearly they're not as agitated by bakery waste. The group, Scientist Rebellion, also accused the company of turning a blind eye to human rights abuses in China. The company seemed to take it all in stride, Anna, saying, quote, "A constructive dialogue is important, and a general meeting offers a good opportunity for this." A good opportunity for whipping a cake at the chair?
I don't think that's the constructive dialogue.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think that's what they're referring to.
And before we jump into it, can we just talk about how agile this 80-year-old man is, and just like how swiftly he dodges this cake, kind of gives like a mean mug, and then just continues about his business?
Yeah, he was not going to be slowed down by any kind of cake.
This wasn't his first cake dodge.
No. I think that these kind of disruptive protests generate unique reactions depending on which side of the issue you're on, right? So for many, and I think some of our commenters on the website, they see this as diversionary, inappropriate. For others, they see this as really the only way to pierce the veil of a corporation and really make a statement that's going to be acknowledged. And I think it's the latter that's more effective, right? Because if there were a handful of protesters outside of the building when this meeting was being held, that doesn't even make the news probably, right?
Right.
What does? Throwing cake at an 80-year-old billionaire on his birthday. Topless protesters shouting over a business executive's presentation also occurred here. That was not mentioned in the article, but that also took place. They were out to get attention and they got it. And they want to publicly apply pressure to these companies. And it can be hard to do that in a way that's not a dramatic demonstration. So we're talking about it, right?
Right.
But the flip side is that stuff like this can be very polarizing. And so I don't think it helps get the people who are not already on your side to be on your side. That said, the only party that you really need to take note of this is Volkswagen. Do I find it likely that any kind of constructive dialogue transpires from this? No. But it does apply pressure and it does embarrass these company leaders. And it's not going to be, it's going to be memorable for them. It's going to be much more memorable for them than like getting a letter that they never read or a single person taking the bus instead of buying a Volkswagen car, right? So in my opinion, I think people find themselves in these types of scenarios as a byproduct of a society where they don't feel like they can be heard. And where the power to like make a discernible difference when it comes to climate change is concentrated in the hands of a very small number of industries and corporations. And so I think as people become increasingly distressed and desperate and frantic over climate change, you may see more of this type of stuff. These types of demonstrations have been taking place for hundreds of years. They're not wackos. They're just regular people, I think, who feel like this is the only way to make a statement. And I just think that that we should expect that we might see people start to try to, jump out there into the public eye and try to make a statement.
Well, in this group in particular, I had to look into them because their name was Scientist Rebellion. And so I figured they were wackos or of the ilk. But actually, the majority of this group has a natural or social science background. And at every one of these protests, they try to be at least 2/3 professional scientists at every protest. Apparently, you can tell which ones are the scientists because they are wearing the lab coats. Still, I wouldn't exactly qualify this as constructive dialogue, but it got attention. And Andy, do you think that they're discussing anything internally at VW beyond increasing security at these events?
From this, no. And it's tough because it seems like the broader public kind of tunes out the general protest as you were talking about. But there's also more pressure politically and socially, it seems, in Germany and elsewhere throughout Europe than there is here or in other countries.
Very true.
So, it's hard. It's the cynic wants to say that the cynic in me wants to say that, this is the only way to get their attention. But I mean, really, it's not. I mean, there's real political pressure, and whether it's getting results now, it's there more than it is maybe in other places. So you have to pick your spots to get headlines, but really where it happens is applying political pressure. So you just have to, I don't know. It sounds like
it's not applying cake pressure.
It sounds like I'm trying to say get out and vote, which is so lame, even though you should vote.
I mean, it's,
that's part of it, right?
Yeah, that's part of the equation.
Right.
Also, maybe a cupcake's easier to aim.
You got to pick your spots, throwing at an 80-year-old. Come on. Like find the junior executive who's like 60. Then you won't be like hit with whatever the German equivalent of aggravated assault is.
Yeah.
And yes, the aim, we talked about how, nimble he was for 80. And it was a quick little move, but I don't think that cake was anywhere close to him.
It was just the camera angle made it look closer. So the person throwing the cake was topless?
No, these were two different people.
Oh, okay.
It was just all part of the same.
Like, what a detail to leave out. Anyway, the topless thing has got me thrown.
That's why I didn't include it.
So when it comes to justifying breaking the law. This group of scientists says that, quote, research shows that peaceful civil disobedience is one of the most effective approaches to achieving rapid social change. The system that created our laws is the same system that is pushing us to the collapse of society as we know it. By carefully breaking the law through acts of civil disobedience, we not only show our defiance to the system, but also the personal price we are willing to pay when doing so. And I think that shows that there is a little bit more skin in the game when these are professionals who are in almost as like their resume. They have a list of their clippings from when these scientists have been imprisoned and jailed for these acts. So I don't know. Do you think, Anna, does that lend any more credibility to the protest because they are professional scientists?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to take an issue with the way they carried it out, then you're going to do that regardless of who they are, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, people who study this and they understand what's happening with the environment and they're taking a stand against certain technologies or certain, corporate interests or whatever. Yeah, I think you can understand why people are doing that.
Agreed.
I feel like the word civil is doing a lot of heavy lifting and civil disobedience there.
Well, it's, okay, like baked disobedience. So scientists are becoming more involved in activism, particularly when it involves these arrestable defenses. And according to this group, they say it increases the credibility of the civil or otherwise described disobedience. And as one of the members stated, quote, they can't just dismiss us as a bunch of hippies, which, I mean, I feel like maybe 80% of the people that read this story wanted to do, just
probably more.
Bunch of hippies. I know it was like a very liberal 80%. All right. Our next most popular story. Accounting manager steals $2.5 million from Washington manufacturer. For 10 years, Kristen Guillory held a job as an accounting manager for a manufacturing company in Everett, Washington. According to her LinkedIn profile, the company was likely PPE supplier Majestic Glove. Guillory took more than $2.5 million from the company in an increasingly clumsy scheme that spanned the better part of a decade. According to the DOJ, she paid fake companies and then routed the money to her personal bank accounts. For example, it started when she set up a fake commercial shipping company and paid nearly $1.7 million to it from 2014 to 2019 using Square. And if you're not familiar with it, that's a sort of point of sale app that you can use for transactions. She covered her tracks by cooking the company's books. When her Square account was shut down in 2019, she switched to PayPal, fake accounts, and took another $604,000. In 2021, she cut out the middleman entirely and simply transferred $247,000 straight from her company to her personal bank accounts using old invoices. Throughout this entire scheme, she made at least 867 secret transactions. Guillory pled guilty to wire and tax fraud, and despite facing up to 20 years in prison, prosecutors are going to recommend no more than 41 months. Anna, does the penalty fit the crime?
White collar crime, worth it.
White collar crime to the absolute definition. I was so surprised. I mean, do you think she just got tired of not getting caught with the direct deposits into her account?
And she was like, this will get them. Yeah, I know. You would think, too, that the 2019 getting her Square account shut down would be like a great warning sign to be like, you know what? Now is the time to walk away. But these people in these cases, every time, they just keep going.
Yeah.
Why you just quit while you're ahead, right? But that's what I would do if I were stealing money from my company. Just quit while I was ahead, right? What stands out to me in this story was how the scheme initially unraveled. So Guillory's employee didn't actually figure this out. An involved financial institution tipped off that there were some irregularities, they said. And that's according to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I'll say.
Yeah, some irregularities. So Majestic Glove, the company that is speculated to have been Guillory's employer for the past decade or more, is a privately owned business that ZoomInfo estimates has about 125 employees. Rocket Reach said the company's revenue in 2021 was $128 million, making them like a decent sized company. And they were purchased by the distributor Bunzl in 2011, but even still, $2.5 million slowly over the course of 10 years is still $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
Often companies like these are bolted on in these distribution buys, so they operate mostly independently. And I know that some of these smaller and medium businesses, they try to run as lean as they can. We do, so I get that. But I guess in the case of accounting, maybe better safe than sorry. You probably should be having more than one set of eyes, or at least an auditor in this case. At
least more than once a decade.
Yeah.
Once a decade, have someone else get another set of eyes on those books.
For sure. And I'm not at all criticizing the company because obviously
they're the victim.
No, they're the victim. No one is expecting this. But the part about it, I think that was the saddest is that, how you think that you can trust someone after more than a decade in your organization. She came to work every day, interacted with the team, and was provided with a very high level of trust, clearly. And that is the kind of thing that could break a culture if you're not careful, because the executives here probably feel duped. They probably feel paranoid.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be more prone to micromanage going forward, probably really impacted by this. And so I think that it's going to impact the entire business in ways outside of just monetary ones, unless the execs can really take a perspective of this was an outlier. We'll have to add some checks and balances, make some changes, and not let it destroy the culture of this team.
Yeah.
But it could so easily do that. And that's it's hard to think about the bigger picture with this, but how devastating that would be to a company if one of your own, really screwed you for so long,
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point about how it could sort of sow distrust among the entire staff, because it's whoa, well, if we couldn't trust Kristen.
Right.
That's an interesting point. Andy, we've all worked together for a long time. What are you hiding?
I am as clumsy as this was. I'm not even that clever, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm not. Sentencing guidelines, they're kind of optional. The judge can, adjust that as he or she sees fit. There's a lot of factors that go into play. How much was stolen in the grand scheme of things, how cooperative they were with prosecutors, that sort of thing. But 3.5 years for something this shameless seems, and I'm not a lock him up and throw away the key guy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just, this doesn't seem like the lesson learning type.
No. So this is definitely,
I don't know what we're doing
I don't even know
here.
if this is a slap on the hand.
Right. And it's still 3.5 years of your life, but
yeah,
I mean, all these wire fraud cases that we see come by, and it's 20 a pop for every count, and it's 3.5.
Yeah. For 867 secret transactions.
Yeah. Also a reminder that they will always get you on the tax stuff.
Yeah.
If you steal $2 million from your company, Uncle Sam gets his cut. Otherwise, they'll get you on that too. 3 years.
Isn't taxes what got Capone?
Yes.
Yeah. See,
that's pretty much why that's pretty much why that tax evasion is. I have to go back and look at that. Don't quote me on that.
No, but I mean, I feel like that's why we were taught about Capone, through at such a young age. Because it's look at this incredibly charismatic, brazen criminal that beat everybody. But then they took him down on tax.
Committed all these horrible crimes, and they got him for bookkeeping.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, I guess of all the things that they tried scaring me straight on, I guess that was one that worked, Anna.
I guess so.
I thought a positive spin on the story is that at least she upcycled the invoices, So there's that. There wasn't any additional wasted paper. Small upside.
The environment's important.
Now, in the event that this is, I guess if someone looked at my LinkedIn profile and that became part of the story, I might take it down. But she hasn't. On her LinkedIn profile, she says she is an experienced accounting and human resources manager with a demonstrated history of working in the wholesale industry. I think that might need some tweaking now.
Those are both objectively true.
And same here. She's a strong accounting professional, skilled in budgeting, financial reporting, management, leadership skills, and account management.
I don't know about reporting anymore.
I guess, maybe that's the only one that doesn't still hold. She's proficient in recruiting, organizational development, personal management, safety, and succession planning. Maybe she's training her own successor now. But I don't know. I just when things like you need to make sure that you understand everything about yourself that you put out there, and be aware of that and how it might be used against you. You know, in the event that
if you're doing crimes later on,
you're doing crimes that are like 10 years long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Long story short, don't do crimes. All right. Our most popular story this week. Seafood processors' distribution has been stopped over vile conditions. Irvington, Alabama seafood processor, Irvington Seafood, has been enjoined by a federal court. The court order prohibits the company from distributing its products after it was accused of distributing bad crab meat. From 2006 to 2022, the company's owner and officers allegedly processed the company's ready-to-eat crab meat in insanitary conditions. Numerous FDA inspections found roaches, flies, maggots, and listeria on food contact and non-food contact surfaces of equipment. I read this multiple times before this because I wanted the gag reflex not to trigger live.
Let it go.
Touch and go.
Maggots. Do you want just say it one more time?
Yeah. I mean, it's when you string them together.
Mm-hmm.
It's real hard.
Roaches,
real
flies,
hard
maggots.
on
Yep.
the senses.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Employees weren't properly washing their hands or their aprons. And what's worse is that despite these multiple FDA warnings, the company effectively changed nothing. The company has agreed to settle this lawsuit and is bound by a permanent injunction. They must now destroy all of their raw materials and food products, and Irvington must notify the FDA before processing or distributing any food and allow the agency to inspect its facilities and procedures. About a year ago, Irvington recalled its 1-pound packages of crab meat for potential listeria contamination. While the FDA didn't test the crab meat, it did find listeria, on cooking equipment and in a cooking room. Andy, at a basic level, if you're an employee there, don't you at least want to clean so you don't infect yourself? Like, food poisoning is terrible.
Oh, I would have thought hand washing would have been covered on day one.
Yeah. Just for your own sake.
I don't
selfishly wash your hands.
I don't have a ton to add here. It's just that usually when you're looking at food safety stories, usually listeria is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here, and I don't want to downplay the possible health implications of listeria, which can be very serious, but that's the least gross thing here.
Yeah.
Like, comfortably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's hard to do. It really is. So, maybe running them through the ringer so they throw out all their stuff will make them, again, this doesn't sound like the lesson learning type of establishment. So,
well, this is the sort of injunction where, if they don't learn their lesson, they just can't open again. Right?
I feel like if there's this long list,
yeah,
maybe that step should have been taken way before, and maybe now is the time to be like, you guys can take a little break here.
Sorry, Anna. That's the most frustrating thing to me is the multiple FDA warnings.
I totally agree. It says permanent injunction, but obviously you read the facts of the story. There's a door open for this company. They've been blowing their OSHA audits for like 20 years, and yet,
yeah,
I don't know. I just so they address the problem basically by requiring a clean slate. They have to throw out all their raw materials and then recall everything clean. But they can start again. And I just don't think there is a clean slate possible when the workers, through their behaviors, were complicit in these problems. And if they want to get approval and start again, I hope that works. But I think that type of inspection is also different from a surprise inspection, where everyone is caught exhibiting their regular behaviors.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you can test a machine for listeria and not find it, and that applies to one day of that operation, right? This went on from 2006 to 2022 amid multiple inspections where unsanitary conditions repeatedly existed. It feels like a long time to allow the company to operate to begin with. And now we as consumers just have to assume that they will have figured it out if they're allowed to open their doors again, but we won't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maggots. That I
Yeah.
couldn't get past that.
The gross factor is enough that hopefully people will see the brands. Well, because it's just a process. It's just a supplier, right? Or do they do direct to consumer? Because they did have to recall some products. Okay.
But let me check here. I have it.
The other thing was that this really made me think of the Q&A that Jeff did with the OSHA Insider, where it was something like an OSHA inspector, there's one for every, how many, like 70,000 companies? It might not be that. I can't remember it specifically off the top of my head. But one, this is how these people kind of can go 16 years without getting caught, is because OSHA is so understaffed and underfunded.
Yeah.
And two, when you have a repeat offender like this, it just means that there are so many other facilities that aren't getting the proper inspections.
Exactly.
Like, let's say that they do clean the slate, right? I mean, okay, the first inspection, they say everything's good to go. You can restart business. Andy, how long is it until an inspector shows up? Like the next week?
I mean, if they are interested in keeping consumers safe, it would be the next week. But
yeah,
who's to say?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been in airports for the better part of the last 24 hours. But the story just reminded me that if you're a worker at any point of the totem pole, like if you see something, say something. It's I mean, not to like promote whistleblowing, but the range for awards is between 10% and 30% of any of the money collected. So there's that if you need an extra carrot. But I mean, this is something where if any one of the workers would have come forward, could have shut them down a lot faster, and a lot less people were probably going to be sick. I know that we've mentioned it before with these contamination stories, but after I realized I had contamination on our barbecue outside and I had food poisoning myself twice, you learn not to mess around with that. That thing gets bleached after every time I use it. Before I was pretty laissez-faire with like, yeah, we got raw chicken on there, whatever, let's just use the handle and just kind of wipe it clean. Bleaching everything. From the kitchen to the outdoor barbecue and in between, everything is bleached.
A lot of hand washing with poultry.
You got to do it.
And crab.
All right. Well, before we move it on to, in case you missed it, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on the website but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have another word from our sponsor. Hi, I'm David Manti with Industrial Equipment News. Selecting the right hoses to keep your workers safe and facilities operational is crucial, but not all hoses are created equal. So, to help us work it out, Doug Nordstrom, hose product manager at Swagelok, is going to help us figure it out. Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. Central, please join us live. So, Doug, give us a little bit of what people could expect to learn from this webinar in May.
Yeah, so we always want to make sure we educate our hose users to select the right hose for a job, because an improperly selected hose can be very dangerous for operators, people around the hose. It can lead to excessive downtime and can be a source of excessive cost for a particular operation.
Well, we certainly don't want that. So please register now to join us live Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. Central. We'll see you there. And we're back. Just a reminder, this week's episode is brought to you by Swagelok. We're talking hose failures. So join us to learn how you can cut down on these significant hose safety risks. It's going to happen on Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. I know that you think you still got a lot of time, but register now so we know you're coming. Mastering hose selection in your facility. It's a new live video podcast with yours truly. Register now. We'll see you on the 23rd, or we'll see you on demand. I understand it's an on-demand culture. That's just what people expect from their media these days. All right. In case you missed it, stories maybe not as popular on the website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. Andy, what do you have for us this week?
I don't know how much of an impact this will make going forward, but I couldn't help myself. We ran a story this week about a man named Joseph Dituri. He's a biomedical engineer at the University of South Florida, goes by Dr. Deep Sea.
Dr. Deep Sea.
Dr. Deep Sea.
He's staying at something called Jules Undersea Lodge, which was a structure built at the bottom of a 30-foot lagoon in Key Largo off Florida. And it houses scuba divers. So he went in on March 1st, and he has been there ever since.
Man.
which over the weekend made him the person who has lived the longest underwater consecutively without any systems to adjust for the increased pressure of being underwater. He broke the record of 2 Tennessee professors who stayed there for more than 73 days in 2014. He went down there for 100 days, and he's going to see that through, he says. He's conducting experiments to, he says, evaluate the body's response to long-term pressure. He's also conducting online classes and interviews from down there with media. We should see if we get him on.
We should.
Definitely get
Are
Dr.
you watching
Deep
right
Sea
now?
He's got time.
Yeah.
Does he get a signal down there? Anyway.
He suggests that the applications of the pressure study could be beneficial for both medicine and for possible exploration of deeper space. What drew me to this was the possibility of like an undersea hotel with in the coral reef, like with whatever, seahorses and clownfish and all that sort of thing, like Finding Nemo or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a little more bleak than that if you see the pictures on the story. He says he's enjoying it, but misses the sun, which
Yep.
honestly, I have been there. So
Yeah.
we wish him continued success on the final weeks of his mission down there in the lagoon.
And I found it interesting that Dr. Deep Sea was having such a good time down there.
I don't think he's having that good of a time. I mean, I think he's just doing it because he feels compelled to do it. But he was, the thing about the sun, I mean, that's got to be having an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Preparing all of his food rations in the microwave. I mean, I understand. I've heard rave reviews of cooking eggs in a microwave, but it's still a pass for me. I mean, however, I was kind of curious as to whether or not he was married or had a family, because on those days when that house is just so loud, 100 days of solitude doesn't sound bad.
100 days?
I know. I just went 2.5 days and I'm desperate for my family's attention. I thought this was a really cool story too. And I liked the part of the story that I liked the most is that it is about legitimate research. He's still teaching while he's down there. Real good could come from this. It's not just a PR stunt.
Correct.
All right. Anna, what's your, in case you missed it this week?
I selected a story titled 3M to develop carbon removal technology. So 3M announced on Tuesday that it's expanding its commitment to material science-based climate tech solutions. It's working with a partner called Svante Technologies to develop material that can trap carbon dioxide found in the atmosphere and permanently remove it. According to Ray Ebby, president of 3M's personal safety division, the company's eager to take on this challenge. They say their deep expertise in filtration technology gives them the confidence to scale these carbon-absorbing solutions with the necessary speed to combat climate change. I want to see this as a positive story, so I will.
Okay. There's a but.
Well, so, I mean, 3M has had a kind of a rocky go in the last few years. They were a major contributor to the PFAS contamination situation. As we've covered, they announced recently they will exit PFAS manufacturing by 2025. Whether or not this is driven by a need the company has to improve its reputation in terms of climate goals, who knows? But maybe who cares? I don't know. If, in 2020, right? So when they accelerated mass production, everyone was giving them a pat on the back. That kind of starting to feel like pretty far away now. I mean, the last 2 years for 3M have been PFAS, layoffs, earplug lawsuits. They're still facing billions of dollars in liabilities for both PFAS and those earplugs. Maybe they're trying to look like they're in this climate thing in a positive way. I don't care as long as they do it. Carbon capture, in my opinion, has tremendous potential. I don't believe it absolves individuals and corporations of their responsibility to use less, but I will take this effort as a positive step. So, I don't know.
Well, Andy, what was the story that we were talking about earlier with how ESG goals are becoming increasingly popular? I mean,
was it about how ESG goals are becoming increasingly popular?
It was about how ESG goals are becoming increasingly popular. And, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the takeaways from the SAP conference that I was at this week. But one of them is that I don't want to say that there's real money in the ESG goals now, but there's real money in those ESG goals. And so I think that the fact that a lot of companies are moving forward with these initiatives, putting real money behind them, that this might not just be lip service from 3M, that, the market could be really ready for a product like this?
I totally agree. I mean, obviously it's good marketing for them if they're like getting involved in this. But yes, to your point, like there's companies out there that are like, we need to cut our carbon footprint. How can we do it? And they're looking for materials like this. They're looking for ways to do it. So we're seeing a lot of success too from companies who supply like electronic components, how much benefit they're getting out of ESG, because all these companies are like, we need to use more solar and electricity. We need help like building that infrastructure out on our facilities. Help us do it. They need more of those types of products just like this. So I totally agree with your point.
Yeah, we need real, tangible improvements in products rather than just buying credits.
If this works, I mean, they could bankroll themselves. If it works tangibly on climate change, they could bankroll that company for decades.
Yeah.
I was curious if you were intrigued by the timing, given that they just fired an executive for inappropriate conduct the day before this announcement came out. Not that this, I mean, everyone supports this.
Yeah.
I just found the timing interesting.
There's no, I feel like they're not having any good timing in the last couple of years. It's been a mess. Like there was like that hot second where they're like, we made 3 times the N95s that we did last year because we ramped up so fast, and everyone was like, yes. And then now that's just way in the past.
Yeah.
It's too long.
Maybe they were just massaging the release of this a little bit, making sure it was going through the proper channels.
I don't blame them.
And then the news of the termination came through due to inappropriate conduct. And they're like, you know what? Why don't we get that on the wire?
Yeah.
Get that out there right now. A lot of high-res photos out there for everybody to see. All right. In case you missed it this week, a milling equipment maker reaches 200 years in business. So, based in Utica, New York, Munson Machinery makes mixing equipment and blending and size reduction machines for powder and bulk solids, pastes, and slurries. The equipment is used by companies across many industries. For example, manufacturers of herbal teas, nutraceuticals, animal vitamins and feeds, coffee, concrete, glass. There are many others. Well, this week, we found out that Munson Machinery is celebrating 200 years of business. And despite them sharing the name with the illustrious Ben Munson of industrial media, that is an incredible feat. The company was founded as A. Munson and Company in 1823 by Alfred Munson. Alfred wanted to make grain milling machines, flour bolters, grinding supplies, and water power equipment. The company went on to become the first in the United States to manufacture French burr millstones, which are able to achieve a finer grinding. The company has survived a civil war, 2 world wars, multiple pandemics, and several economic downturns, and yet they persevere. Over the years, the company has changed and the equipment has been upgraded, but the company's philosophy has stayed the same, and I thought it was important to share. Our mills are built upon honor. All we ask is a careful examination of their merits. We leave the decision to you. I chose this story because I thought it was commendable that they've been able to operate for 200 years, despite the many ups and downs in the market, evolving market conditions. I also like any sort of retrospective piece where you can see how the machinery has evolved. I don't know if you had a chance to, Andy, I don't know if you had a chance to look at like some of the old wooden machines. And I just thought it was some incredible engineering in the 1800s and through today.
Yeah, to be able to, persevere through all the technological changes over that time frame is incredible in and of itself. So there's a reason not a lot of companies make it. So that's incredible.
Anna, I reached out to Munson Machinery after we did this story and right before the podcast, and I asked if they could share any words of wisdom as to like how companies could last 200 years. And I don't have it because I asked them 5 minutes before we started recording. But in the event that they share, I'll definitely make sure to share that. I already have my final thought for next week cooking. But what were your thoughts on what's going on at Munson Machinery here?
They're reading your email right now and they're like, this guy thinks that anyone's been alive here for 200 years. Like we have any idea.
Yeah, it's the fact that Alfred has, been a medical marvel and lived for 200 straight years and is still jogging.
Alfred will provide a quote. This company is still quite active. We get a lot of press releases from them still about equipment that they're modifying, upgrading, producing new designs. So it's not like they're just limping along on some old patent that they have. Like they're really actually pretty aggressive in this food market, which is pretty astounding. You don't see to make it 200 years. To survive 200 years is one thing, but to thrive into, this second century is pretty amazing. So very cool.
I think it's definitely a testament to their innovation, their investment in R&D, and how they just don't rest on their laurels. And, one thing that we saw in 2008 is that a lot of the companies, and I mean, we're not using the R word yet, we're talking slow down, but like in 2008, one of the things that we saw from people that came out of it ahead of everybody else is they didn't stop investing in innovation. They didn't stop investing in R&D. And because of everything that they kind of put into it, it kind of set them apart from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's move on to our final thoughts before we get out of here. Andy, before we get out of here, what is your final thought?
Your milling company Bicentennial sent me down the dreaded Wikipedia rabbit hole.
Interesting.
So I went looking for, first I wanted to see how many companies made it 200 years. Then I got distracted, started looking for the oldest American company. Then I got distracted again, and I found what Wikipedia says is the world's oldest continuously operating company. It's a Japanese construction firm named, I believe, Kongo Gumi.
Okay.
Kongo Gumi. Do any of you both want to guess what year this company was established?
So it's the longest operating company in history or like
continuously operating
in the
today.
world.
It started then and it continues to operate today.
I'm going to guess ridiculous. Like I'm going like they founded in like 70 AD.
This is how you ruin these kind of, when you like overshoot it and then whatever Andy says is going to be like not as...
I'm going to guess...
You got to go like $1.
1800, okay, 1822. They're 1 year older than Munson.
1945, that is my guess. What was it, Andy?
I get yelled at for that a lot by certain parties in my household for ruining guesses.
Right? And I come to work to get away from that. Well, you already ruined it.
You just guessed 7 AD.
70.
70 AD.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
When was it founded?
As old as Hanukkah or whatever. It was formed by a carpenter picked to build a temple in Osaka in 578 AD.
Oh, what? That's pretty close. That's pretty close. 578 AD.
It was family owned for the vast majority of its history. It was incorporated finally in the 1950s. Unfortunately, it went into liquidation in 2006. Now it's a subsidiary of a company called Takamatsu Construction Group. However, still a pretty good run.
Yeah. Man.
1,400 years.
I didn't ruin it.
I mean, closest without going over. So technically, I won, but...
Oh man, that is incredible. I don't even understand. Like, I mean,
yeah. How are they proving this?
There's a list.
Okay.
They said they had documented it and all that. I don't know if that's true or not. It's Wikipedia, so grain of salt.
Who has the scrolls? I want to
There's
see
the
them.
list of oldest companies. Like the first 6 or 7 are all Japanese. It's just probably a fun historical accident.
Man,
It's pretty awesome.
Is incredible.
Got your Jeff fact for the final thought.
That is a great. I mean, and that's like banging trivia for Nolan. That's right up his wheelhouse.
There you go.
All right, Anna, what's your final thought this week?
My final thought is we just had Mother's Day over the weekend, which was pretty awesome. My kids were so jacked up about it that they woke me up at 6 o'clock in the morning to bring me breakfast in bed.
The best.
I know. And I was like, I love you guys so much. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. So
I will love you the same at 7:30.
I know, right? Exactly. But I just got up anyway. So anyway, thanks guys. You're the best.
Well, and just to all the mothers out there, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a big thank you. It's
Sorry.
yeah, thank yous and sorries. Yeah. No, it's one of those where like mothers play such a large role in your lives, and the handmade cards and the trinkets that you bought as a result of a very well done Facebook algorithm. They just don't seem to do them justice. But,
they're the best things though. The handmade cards and the little, I got like a bracelet made out of beads. It says wow or mom. I'm not sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
I heard a great story. Des made a little potted plant at school. You know, the school sent everyone home with these tiny little plants that were flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the one day, this Friday, that Grandma Lou was over and wanted to surprise Des, picking him up from school. And for whatever reason, like when he handed it to her to show her, like, look, I grew this. She, for whatever reason, instinctually just kind of like plucked at it, ripped it right out of the dirt. Right out of the dirt. And like not only like ripped, there were two of them in there, ripped one out, it fell. And then she tried like crudely planting it back in. Like, and it was so great because she thought she got away with it. And then later, Des like quietly went to Carrie and was just like, did you see Grandma like rip the plant right out of the dirt? And it was because I saw it and I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Like we did the foam cups with the grass.
Yeah.
You know? And when I saw it, and then like 2 days later, it was dead. I'm like, oh man, what do we do?
What
like,
happened?
No plants live here. And it was just like,
Grandma.
Yeah, Grandma just ripped that thing right out. Anyway, my final thought this week is that I went to the SAP conference this week. I thought there are some really incredible things coming out of there. I just wanted to share. We have some of the news posted on the site. I'll have a write-up from the event. But some things to look out for. SAP has been working with Microsoft to use generative AI to address the skills gap. And I thought this was actually really cool. Mm-hmm. So SAP is going to use AI to not only attract the most qualified candidates, but also generate these personalized insights to keep employees engaged once you have them. That's just been a thing that we've been talking about being difficult in terms of the generational shift. And maybe we could lean on AI to kind of show us what employees are looking for a little bit more. They're also leaning into AI on customer engagement and procurement. And I had kind of teased this earlier, but they announced this thing called like the Green Ledger, which is essentially an accounting system that is going to be bolted on for actual auditable, transparent, reliable data on climate initiatives.
Oh, cool.
And I thought that was really cool because it's supposedly going to move these companies past carbon estimates to having actual data. And I understand it's probably because, you know, how many stories do we talk about like green companies maybe being financially rewarded because there's just not a lot of good data out there in order to associate it with. Maybe this could do a big job changing that. I wanted to thank Tony Harris and David Vallejo with SAP. Those were two of my favorite interviews. I also met with Andreas Yurkovich with Hitachi Energy and Kenneth Fisher with Arista Networks. Those interviews are all be coming out soon. Just really cool things from SAP. I didn't know a lot about the company. I kind of took the lead on it because Jeff had a conflict. This is more of Jeff's wheelhouse. And let's just say with the first interview, I should have led with that. And they're like, so what did you think about the things you heard today? And I wanted to say, that's all new to me. And instead, I just kind of fumbled forward and I'm like, what do you have to say? Like,
what's your favorite
color? But no, thank you very much for having me in Orlando. It is warm down there. Also, I just stayed in a vile Motel 6 last night. And I wanted to pose this sort of hypothetical, or not hypothetical. I wanted to see what you guys would do, right? So, all right, I was leaving Orlando last night. I decided to leave early because I was planned to leave Orlando to get home in Madison really late last night, right? But the airline from as early as like 4 p.m. local time, right? They started, first they delayed my flight. And then they said, nope, flight's back on. So like I rushed to the airport and then they delayed it 3 more times to the point where they're like, you're probably going to miss your connection in Atlanta and we can rebook you the next day. They're like, but there is a chance that because of the weather, you could land in Atlanta and still catch that flight and get home, right? But SAP had a party last night and the headliner was Usher. And so I was like really torn as to, okay, I know that it's very unlikely that I make it. I make the flight in Atlanta, but am I always going to be held to, well, you never even tried because you wanted to see Usher. So I wanted to know, what would you guys do in that situation? Andy, would you try to get home on the flight or would you stay at the party, which was also hosted at Universal Studios, and watch Usher, if not for the fanfare, but just for the sheer like spectacle of it.
You know what this really sad answer is? I'd probably bail on both. I'd probably bail on the flight and the concert.
So you'd stay in Orlando and
Wait,
just
yeah,
not
where
even
are
Just
you?
hang out in my room.
Where are you right now?
I can't deal with airports. The Usher thing seems like a big deal. So I don't know. I think given the choice of the two, I think I'd probably see the concert.
Yeah.
But
I made a mistake. Anna,
I try to, self-awareness is important. So
did I make a mistake by not sticking around Orlando?
Well, now, because you didn't make we know you didn't make your flight. So, I mean, but I would have tried to get on the flight, I think. I love Usher, and it would have been an amazing show.
Yeah.
But, you want to get home, you want to get those overnight oats going.
I got the overnight oats going.
You
And like the whole dropping the little gifts that you get from the road in your
Yeah.
kids' beds. Like, I'm a sucker for that. Just carries all over me about like, we got enough toys. And I'm like, I absolutely agree. Here are 2 more.
Yeah, my kids are like ruthless on the schedule. Like if I'm on the road, they were like, "When are you coming home?"
Yeah.
So like I can't be casual about it at all.
No, and I made that mistake. The last call with him, I was just like, I was talking to him right as I got on the plane. And I'm like, Daddy's coming home tonight. He'll kiss you in bed and then he'll see you in the morning. And just this today, when I saw him this afternoon, he's like, you weren't there this morning.
you lied to me.
You weren't there. But okay, and this could just be a crazy coincidence, but it's a little twist of fate. So after landing in Atlanta, missing the flight, and having like 700 people got canceled last night. So the 4 Delta attendants did their best.
Yeah.
But I finally make it to my Fleabag motel. And in this shuttle that's crammed full of people,
Usher.
guess what's on the radio?
Oh.
It's Usher. And it's not even just Usher. It's
You made
Usher
the
live.
concert anyway.
I was
Look
just
at
like,
that.
and I'm just like smiling, and the guy next to me is like, you like Usher? And I'm just like, not really. But you won't understand, and we don't have enough time to talk
It's been a long
about it.
night.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Andy, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. And subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can join us when we go live every Thursday. Jeff should be back next week, but Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
For Andy Zoll and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.